You're live, sir.
Good evening. Welcome to the December RSU 25 school board meeting. If you will please join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Could you please take the attendance?
Mr. Foster,
I am here.
Mr. Burgess. Here. Mr. Koff,
Here.
Mr. Claire,
Here.
Ms. Rickman,
Yes.
Ms. Foster,
Here.
Ms. Asbury.
Here.
Mr. Frazier.
Here.
We have everybody in attendance.
This is the time for us to swear at some people. Swearing in of a new board member.
Mr. Tripp is a duly noted notary public, so he has the power to do that, and he'll take care of swearing in Mr. Koff.
Excellent. That class all over again.
I know, right? Y'all are the one.
I, Kieran Kopp,
I, Kieran Koff,
do swear that I will faithfully discharge,
do swear that I will faithfully discharge,
to the best of my abilities,
to the best of my abilities,
the duties incumbent on me
the duties incumbent on me
as a regional school unit board director of RSU 25,
as a regional school unit board director of Regional School Unit 25,
according to the Constitution of Maine and laws of the state.
according to the Constitution of Maine and the laws of this state,
So help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Yeah. 6 months.
This is the time that we open for public participation. If you would like to participate, you can watch us live on YouTube at rsu25.org/school board. You can email us for public comment at rsu25.org, or you can phone in for public comment at 307-8099. While we wait for your comments, we will see what else is on the agenda here with adjustments to the agenda.
But we do have one comment already.
Oh, we already have a comment.
That comes from Mr. Nealon, Keith Nealon from Bucksport, and he just wanted to wish the school board administration, faculty, and staff of RSU 25 a Merry Christmas. And appreciative of updating the agenda online and include the policies that are under consideration. And just look forward to seeing everybody in the new year.
Great, it was very nice.
Thank you. Thank you.
I do have a couple of adjustments for you, such as today is December 21st. Just want to point that out. Yeah, thank you. And where it says approval of minutes, it should say for November 16th, 2021. So my apologies for that. We're going to add to the agenda on N1B Autumn Bishop as a special education effect 1. And Josh Jackson as the weight room supervisor here at the high school, which is a position we've used in the past for after school, just so kids can have access to the weight room. And some supervision just for safety's sake. So those are the adjustments I have for you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we will go on to approval of the minutes. These are to approve the November regular meeting.
You need to recognize me, or are we not doing that anymore?
But I'll still let.
Okay.
Scott,
I move that we approve the minutes of November 16th, 2021.
and Peter,
Second,
we have a motion and a second to accept the regular meeting minutes of November. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you. Next, we have communications and correspondence.
You have a few out there. Just wanted to share a couple of things. We do have the voucher system for athletics. Mr. Ward's done a very nice job with that, and I want to commend him that we had originally planned for our last wrestling tournament, which was the Detour Memorial Tournament. We anticipated well over 120 wrestlers, but we only had 70. And so he was able to adjust seating, so we were able to accommodate spectators from the away teams too, which was greatly appreciated. But kudos to Mr. Ward to, doing the groundwork necessary to make sure that those things can happen. So I'm sure that was appreciated by a number of folks. Matter of fact, I did get an email from a parent from Lincoln, Mattanock team, whose kiddo was wrestling, was thrilled to be able to come see him. Go from there. Got some DOE priority notices for you. Let's see. Federal Head Start program. They are requiring that all individuals connected with Head Start must be vaccinated. That impacts us because that's because we share a pre-K program, we do it as partnership. That means our employees in pre-K, anybody who's gonna have contact with those pre-K kiddos has got to be vaccinated. So we're going through and auditing that. We should be fine. Our only concern is with transportation. So we're going to be working with that. So that's fairly significant. Also, when you take a look at the other priority notice that came out, the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals dissolved the hold on the mandatory vaccination was put in place. That's going to probably end up at the Supreme Court. So we'll see where that takes us. All right, so that's pretty impactful there. You have a communication, Joint Standing Committee on Educational and Cultural Affairs. And there was a report out, and they want to know the impact of what was going on with COVID and what we had to do over the last 18 months. And if you've had a chance to read the report, it basically validated everything that we were seeing, that our kiddos struggled, and it was very, very difficult on them. The impact to them was significant. And to me, it speaks to why it's important to maintain the schools open, having kids in here at school, having a level of normalcy for them, have an opportunity for them to come and work and be part of an in-person school system. And we're seeing the amount of work that we need to do on social emotional learning is critically important. And some of what the studies you can read, some of the articles written on a national level indicate that we've got to take care of the SEL, social emotional learning. That's a foundation before we can really attack the academics. And so it wasn't something we didn't anticipate, but that was the information they had on the survey. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. So I shared with you communication from Drummond and Woodson. That just follows up on the whole Sixth Circuit decision as well. You have your MSBA publication. That's interesting reading there. There is a main case that's made it to the Supreme Court, and that will be very interesting. We're following that closely. Answer any questions for you if you'd like.
Any questions for Jim?
All right. That right in my report?
Yes, please.
Okay, I have to apologize. The first page, I thought for sure we were going to have our audit completed by December 31st. We were communicated with by the auditors today, saying that's not going to happen. We've done our part. We've got everything in. We met the expectations, but the auditors are swamped. And they have some additional auditing that has to happen because of all this federal money. Some of those programs required. The ESSER 3 grant application was approved. That's extremely nice to have behind us. I am sure we will have adjustments made as we go through the process, but we're allowed to do that. There's a process for that. I wanted to bring your attention to the work that we're doing with Building Infrastructure Management Solutions, BIMS. I mentioned, I don't remember if it was October or November meeting, that we received a grant that they were going to come in and do a complete audit of our facilities, take advantage of that. And so that work has already started. You can actually see up by the speaker, there's a monitor up there. It looks like a thermostat right above Abby, your head. It's a little white thing. We have, I think, 24 of those spread out throughout the whole district, all the buildings. That's monitoring for temperatures and CO2 and other variables. So over the holiday break, they're going to be coming in, they're going to be measuring the balance of all the HVACs and all the buildings and really doing a complete study for us. What will be the outcome of this is they're going to come up with a very extensive report. It's going to show where we are with our infrastructure. It's going to help us reestablish our priorities. I am sure that by the time they're done, there'll be projects there that will add up to $4 to $5 million. And then it's a matter of choosing priorities and how we're going to attack that. And they're going to be looking at life cycle of the boilers. Where are we? Do we have to replace those? The building envelopes. We know we have a problem up in middle school. They'll look at all the buildings. So they'll look at the roof. So it's going to help us educate ourselves and we can come up with a plan.
Couldn't help with that capital improvement.
Absolutely. Tremendous.
It'll be a lot of work for us.
Yes. And it's all being done by engineers and people who are within those trades. And then now, what's the back end of this? They're going to come with us and they're going to say, we've got a plan how you're going to solve all this. And so that's all part of the deal. We'll work through that process. But, shared with you the budget development timeline. We're actively in that process. That sits right in the hands of the principals now in the buildings. They're doing the build up. I'll be meeting with the principals through the month of January. By February, I'll be ready for a first draft to share with you folks. Okay. We have agenda item M2. We'll talk about there. You also have the PLCSS support system handbook. What's important there is that's a lot of work that's been done in the back end. We're required by law to have a professional development support system for our teachers so they can work on getting their certifications. There's primarily 3 people who lead the charge on that. That's Evelyn Bullier, Linda White, and Darcy Bradstreet. They went through and they took our plan and updated it with all the changes in legislation. And so now it needs to be presented to the board for your adoption. Okay. Included in that adoption is we have the names of the people who are currently involved as PLCSS members and mentors. And mentors are part of what's required. So that's the bulk of it. Rest of it's going to be on the agenda. January 6th, comment kind of lead into your report.
Okay.
Take it from there about the training.
So January 6th, we are having a training for new board members,
For all board members.
but it's but it is mostly to help out new board members.
Yep.
Some of us are very new at this. And what's the exact time?
It's set up for 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
It'll be right here. It'll be a workshop. I'll publish a workshop. That means it's, the public can certainly be here. It won't be televised. They can't participate. It's only for you. It'll be run, I believe, by Eileen King, who's the Deputy Executive Director of the Maine School Boards Association. And she'll take you through basically the highlights of the Maine School Boards members handbook.
So is it kind of like that workshop that they do at the conference every year?
Yes, but more in depth
Okay.
and more specific. It will be a better chance for dialogue. But that's the foundation of it.
Okay.
And I remember years since we've done one of these.
It's been a long time. And there's been,
Last one we did was a jar.
Yeah, I think it was. the last
Charles.
year. Yes.
there's been enough turnover, so it's timely. And
Great timing, in my opinion.
we're in
Just for you.
There won't be barbecue.
no barbecue with this one, but
Yeah, that timing is a little wrong, but
Yeah.
Well, there's only so much. I can do. All right, so we have that. Upcoming We also are going to have negotiations with the main teachers contract.
Yep.
Coming up. So we need to establish a team for that, if anyone has any interest in doing that. And it looks like we've got someone waving a hand over there.
Yep, no, I would be interested in,
Interested in doing that. Great, David, that's a big help.
yep.
And as you all know, tonight is the December meeting. That's when we do the evaluations for Jim. So we kind of have an abbreviated agenda tonight. We're not going to see the principal's administrative reports, just so we can not keep Jim here until midnight. And that is my report. Now we go on to committee reports. We've got curriculum.
Well, I think it's just pretty short. We met on December 16th. The first thing we did was we got some updates from Evelyn and Josh on the RREV application update, which is a way that we can, it's an opportunity to collaborate with other schools in order to provide a sort of remote learning curriculum. Am I saying that correctly? For the like 7 to 11 students annually that really would do better with remote learning. It's not a lot of kids. That's why we're looking to get into a partnership with other schools for this. And then part of that would they'd be meeting with a caseworker to make sure that they are on track, and they'd have to meet certain standards. So that's kind of exciting. That's in the works. The CS2 update, which is computer science, is pretty exciting. I guess they did a first phase that was piloted in Waterville. This has to do a lot with the Alfond group, and we're going to try and join phase 2. I don't think they've selected anyone yet, though, and there'd be no cost to us at first for if we are accepted to do this. And they are kind of interested in partnering with us, so we're hoping that that will happen. And then at the end of it, if we did partner with them, at a minimal cost, we'd be able to continue on, but we wouldn't have to decide that right away. So that was pretty cool. And then we got an update from the Bucksport Middle School STARS grant. It was just really successful. The outdoor classroom is done. They've gotten all positive feedback, as well as the Bucksport Middle School History in the Making grant update. The mural went up. That went really well. And then the after school programming at the middle school and Miles Lane School, they're doing it at Miles Lane School. The middle school, they haven't quite got that up and running because they don't have enough teachers, I believe was I think you were eating chicken nuggets at that time. But
He was, I was.
you were. You had to go eat
Actively
chicken nuggets.
engaged.
But the Miles Lane, they're working, they start with 2 teachers and they're focusing on the social emotional learning that Jim was talking about. And then we went to talk about the other thing Jim just talked about, so I'm really just gonna say it, the professional learning community support system plan update. And that's what he was talking about. It's updated due to language. And so they were working on that. Then we got a little update from Aspire, Golden Bucks. You guys have a nice journal here from them, or a newsletter, I should say. And then Jim gave us district updates, which the only thing I wrote down is we have more than 600 pool tests that we're doing weekly, which is kind of cool. And that was pretty much it. Did I leave anything out? I can't check with Evelyn this time.
No, I think you captured everything, including Mr. Tripp.
And the chicken, the chicken fingers. He had to get some. It was like cutthroat at his house.
The wrestling is Dominic, but that's all right.
That was an in-depth report.
You feel like you were there?
I can taste them.
Do we have any questions for Abby? So Finance Committee met right before this meeting. We went over the regular budget to actual. Regular education is a little bit overspent current moment. And that's mostly due to our substitutes having a little overage there, but it's minor. The line for transportation is also over, but that is mostly because of the way that we accounted for it in the budget. We budgeted a net figure. State wants us to show the full expenses in the expense lines and the reimbursement in the revenue lines. So when we get the revenues, they don't really show up there. So that's really what's causing it. We're we're about 50,000 overspent at the moment, and that is all fully expected to be reimbursed by other districts. So we're really in good shape there as well. We reviewed lunch. It is just a miracle. I mean, lunch is positive, which never ever happens. We also reviewed senior center, and that is also positive. So good marks all the way around in finance. Any questions? Okay, next we've got policy.
Policy committee, we did meet. We talked about I believe 5 different policies. And, bring 4 of those forward for first reading this evening. One was tabled, sent back for some more information clarification. All of these policies that we're looking at right now are all because of changes in the law that happened in the last legislative session. This is an update due to those law changes, and those will be coming forward first reading time.
Any questions for Dave? Okay, next we got facilities.
Did not meet.
Okay, HCTC.
We did meet, and there are 2, I feel, very exciting things that came out of that meeting. One of them is they're trying to finalize an agreement with Eastern Maine Community College that if a student is in the CNA program and maintains a 3.0 grade point average, they can have automatic admission into the EMCC nursing program, which, could move right into that, which is fantastic. They're still working, trying to finalize the agreement. And the other thing was with EMCC is on-the-spot admissions. Now, getting into college can be a worrisome thing, can be time-consuming, expensive, but they've sent down administrators and met with students that wanted to go to EMCC. And after an interview with them and looking at certain information, they were admitted to the college right then and there on that spot. And there were 12 students that this happened to, and 2 of them are from Bucksport. So that's, can't make it much easier than that. Others is just information that's not too important to handle.
Any questions for Scott? All right, thank you. And then we have the ad hoc recognition. Do we have any ad hoc?
We did not meet.
We did not.
We got-
Oh,
We got to meet again, first of the year to finalize.
okay. So administrator and principal reports, we were going to table those this.
But Mr. Tripp is here.
So Mr. Tripp is here. Okay.
I don't have to say anything. If anybody has any questions for my report, I did get it in like 2 days early for me, which is like 3 weeks early.
Yeah. I thought I was looking at the last month, so I wasn't sure.
Well, he got out of the curriculum early.
Yeah. He was full. Plenty of energy.
The big thing for my report is just what I would talk about in the curriculum committees. We've just been spending some time trying to work on that grant to try to develop a remote pathway collaboration. And that is moving pretty quickly. It is a $100,000 grant that we are looking to get. So it's a substantial size grant that I think will help satisfy a missing strand that we have for, it's a small population of students, but I don't think we've ever done that really, really well. So I think it's certainly, it's going to be worth the investment of time trying to get this grant. And I think the only way it works is if we collaborate with other schools, because we're not going to hire 5 teachers for 7 kids. But if we can partner with 4 or 5 other school districts, and we can all collaborate by providing a person, we can create a pretty comprehensive remote pathway for students that qualify for it.
Great. Any questions for Josh? Okay. Then we have old business, which we have.
Oh, we have some people that are on. Folks, are you here for the meeting?
I'm not a coach, but I'm here. I wanted to talk about wrestling if that was an option.
Yep, we can promote public comment, yes. Yep, if you want to step forward, First question I have is, I'm assuming you are a resident of RSU 25?
Yes.
Okay, if you go right at the end of the table, you'd love to know your name.
So I'm Mandy Bragg. I don't do well with public speaking, but I'm gonna do my best, so bear with me. So I understand that COVID has created a whole whirlwind of change for all of us. However, what I'm watching during the wrestling meets is dangerous and it's scary. Restricting the breathing while they're participating in high endurance sports, it's not only dangerous, but it's stupid. So far we've had, I'm gonna sit because I feel uncomfortable. So far we've had 2 wrestling meets that my child's wrestled in. And by the end of the meets, if not sooner, she's developed a cough and an irritated throat. This is not from her cheering on her teammates. This is from masking during the high endurance sport and breathing back in all that moisture that was previously exhaled into her mask. These are not COVID symptoms. Trust me, I should have bought stock in COVID tests. Those suckers aren't cheap. So the first meet that she wrestled in, she was spoken to a couple times by the ref for pulling her mask down during the meet. Now, that is kind of human nature. If you can't breathe, your automatic body reaction is to find a way to breathe. All of the school wrestlers were doing that regardless of what team that they were from, whether they were from Ellsworth or, I don't know, Fort Kent or what have you. So my question is, if all of these kids are lowering their masks below their nose, what really is the point of masking while we're wrestling? Because I mean, COVID doesn't just come from your mouth. It also comes from your nose. And we're not really stopping any potential transmission while the kids are wrestling, while this is happening. I mean, the masks are falling down on their own because the kids are moving around. What we're doing by having these kids mask is we're restricting them. We have kids who are saying that they're worried about going full tilt out on the mat with the other kids. My daughter is one of them. There was an incident in one of the wrestling matches where she needed to have assistance from the athletic director and Dr. Scala because she couldn't breathe. They needed to put her in they basically were holding her in a head down position and, to my understanding, shaking her to get her diaphragm to settle back down so she could regain regular breathing. This isn't anything that's happened in the past. She's wrestled since she was, I think, in 2nd grade, maybe 1st grade. It's not safe. You know, I mean, I know the kids are all excited to have the sport back and to have the option to wrestle, but me as a parent, I'm concerned about the effects of wrestling with the masks on. I'm worried about the I can't breathe statements that I'm hearing from not just my child. I'm worried about the cough and the irritated throat that the kids seem to be having after wrestling. I'm worried about them ending up with bronchitis or pneumonia, breathing in all that constant moisture back into their lungs. That's kind of what I'm seeing with my child. You know, I understand there's no law regarding masks, and it's only suggested or seriously suggested guidelines. These kids are pool testing, and we're kind of treating them as though they've had a COVID exposure by making them mask. I work in a home healthcare, in-home healthcare office, so I'm constantly calling the COVID hotline to find out about the CDC guidelines. And it doesn't make sense to me that we're making them mask. You know, if we needed to, I think that an option would be to do a temperature scan, but let these kids wrestle without masks on. I mean, the pool testing seems to be working. We haven't had any outbreaks of any COVID that I'm aware of. I haven't been notified of anything that's happened. So I don't think that that's something that is really a problem that's on the table. And they've been wrestling and exposing each other from school to school to school. You know, I know the kids want to wrestle, but I think we need to find a better solution so that the kids can wrestle and do it safely. I don't know whether any of you were there at the Ryan Detour, but we had a kid pass out from wrestling with a mask on. No, that's scary. And I know that the MPA has their rules, and I know this isn't something that we can just snap our fingers to fix, but I think it's something we seriously need to be looking into for our kids' safety. And that is all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Doesn't the MPA dictate what we have to
MPA
do?
sets up recommendations and guidelines, yes.
Okay. So based on that, I mean, in order to be able to have extracurricular sports, we have to adhere to those
Their
recommendations. and guidelines.
recommendations is that we mask for sports, all sports.
All sports.
Yeah, the only exception is the pool, when kids are in the water.
Yeah.
Okay, but including wrestling, their recommendation and their current plan at state and regional tournaments will be masking.
Can we just state why their recommendation is that?
Well, it came from their medical advisory group.
Am I correct? And also, if we had decided they don't have to wear a mask, but we go to a school where they require masks, we have to mask up.
That's
We
correct.
have to meet their requirements.
That's correct.
Because I think Belfast, the basketball is in that situation. They don't require masks, but when they came here,
Yeah,
They have to wear
a mask. Yeah. And the people we wrestle all require masks,
they all do require masks.
ones that I'm aware of, yes.
So it
And
would
is
be-
it,
So it's a situation where it's either we mask or we don't get to participate.
But it-
is there any documentation
But
stating
Heather
that this,
like
oh,
to
sorry.
ask.
I'm sorry, Mary. I think it was November that we just voted. It was either November, was it November that we voted? That we would adhere to the wrestling guidelines.
Yeah, but is there any documentation anywhere of a child getting pneumonia or bronchitis
Not that I'm-
directly from
Not that I'm aware
being
of.
in a mask? Okay.
Now, in a meeting that I was participating in that included the doctor on the MPA advisory committee, their recommendation was modeled after Pennsylvania, where they had done that last year, the kids wrestled.
It's your feeling that it's still safe enough to continue wrestling.
Again, I'm not a doctor.
No, but I mean.
I'm following the guidelines that are presented to me from Karen
I
Bond.
mean, my problem initially was air restriction.
Mhm.
And I was afraid that wrestling shouldn't participate at all
Mhm.
because of air restriction.
Mhm.
And I was afraid that we would have strangulations. And you don't see that as being an issue either,
We haven't seen
that we
that.
should shut down wrestling altogether.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I like the idea that we get to participate. And I want to be able to do that, but at the same time, it needs to be done safely.
Mhm.
And if this is not going to make it safe, then, I think that would be the avenue that we would need to be looking at. Not make it more unsafe.
Wonder if there's any mask options that are specifically designed and geared towards high endurance athletes. There's nothing with like a higher flow rate.
You've got some that are designed. Under Armour has one, there's Nike has one. But they're all going to cover up both nose and mouth.
So I actually did do a little bit of research on that, and I did talk to Mr. Ward about that. And I have a couple masks for my daughter to trial that are for more high-level activities. And the next wrestling meet, she is going to be trialing that. With mail being so slow and Amazon being so slow, they just got here, so.
Now, what brand did you get?
I didn't bring my phone in, so I couldn't tell you off.
Because
top
the
of
Under
my head.
Armours, they don't, the only reason why I haven't bought any is because they don't, they say specifically on them that they're not they do not protect from any kind of illness.
I want to say one of them was named Mission, but I don't recall what the second one was. It's supposed to be like anti-wicking, so moisture wicking, to pull that moisture away. And that's one of the concerns that I have in regards to that. I mean, I don't necessarily want to see wrestling come to a stop. These kids have waited, these kids have wrestled since they were knee-high to a grasshopper, and they're all loving it. But the masking issue is a bit of a concern. And I do understand that football and wrestling are different, only because football is outside. My concern with that is they're still within the same proximity or the same closeness that these kids wrestling are when they're doing tackles. And it doesn't matter whether they're outside or whether they're inside, their faces are still coming in contact. So the CDC guidelines or the MPA guidelines, to me, don't make a whole lot of sense in that aspect. If we can allow football players to go out and do tackles and constantly tackle the same kid repeatedly without a mask on, and that's okay. But the wrestlers can't wrestle for what, 3 minutes? 7 minutes. And how long is a football game? And how many times are we coming head to head with our front lines? So, I mean, that's just another food for thought.
I do
Heather had a,
I just have one last thing that I want to say is that I agree with Tom, and I was very scared for the kids who were going to be wrestling, and that I wanted to err on the side of caution and to just put it to the side for the season myself. And a lot of these policies just come down to compromise. One, we have to, we're looking out for the kids, we're looking out for what their needs are, and it's all just a bunch of compromising.
Anything else?
I do,
Sure.
because the volleyball team was allowed
I'm sorry. Could you please come forward and state your name and the town you're from? We make all of our
I'm
guests do
Naomi
that.
Bragg, I'm from Prospect. I was a
Can you say
member,
your name?
Naomi Bragg.
Yep.
I was a member of the volleyball team, and we were allowed to practice and participate in games without any masks, and we were indoors. And we were allowed to huddle without our masks on. So that is my complete question. Why can we do that and the wrestlers cannot wrestle or practice without masks on?
Two different sports. They're two different levels. Volleyball is not considered a high-risk activity. That's what it boils down. The recommendations from the NPA were different.
That's what I was just, it was also, it's not only a different sport, but it was also a different time in the pandemic.
I can appreciate your question, but that's
Yeah.
the rationale behind it. I would like to know how you make out with those masks. I just pulled it up here, and I have not seen these before. So
We'll give those a whirl, and then I'm not savvy to when you guys normally have these meetings, so would it be best for me just to email you directly, Mr. McPhee, in
Please.
regards to
yeah,
that?
and communicate with Mr. Ward. And I have no issue if this is something that works better than this type of mask or something else.
Right,
That is something definitely we can purchase for the kids.
okay,
That's the mask?
Yeah.
Now that has a strap that continues all the way throughout that.
Yep.
Now that, to me, seems like a definite strangulation hazard. That's what we were talking about previously. Was that the masks that the wrestlers were wearing only went around, looped around the ears so they could break away.
not to interrupt, but the headgear should prevent that, because you have the headgear straps here and here, which would be holding the mask in place.
And all of our wrestlers wear headgear.
It's required.
It's
It's
required.
required, yeah. That wasn't the case back in.
No, it's.
No.
All right. Well, back in the 80s, there was headgear only for a very select few. Okay.
I would appreciate feedback on that. You're gonna try that right off the bat, I assume.
Yeah, I'll have her try it tomorrow, as long as the weather holds out for tomorrow.
Yes, that's another question.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Appreciate your comments.
The third Tuesday of the month,
Okay,
and all the meetings are posted online, or
okay.
they should be.
Thank you so much.
Yep. You have any comments? Yeah, actually.
Sean Costigan, Portland. This is the mask she's talking about. I've been wrestling it for 2 years. I haven't been strangled to death yet. What I can tell you is that they're all terrible. What I can tell you is that prior to allowing wrestling to move forward with masks, it was too dangerous to wrestle with masks, so that we all had to get vaccinated or not wrestle. Somehow that changed from it's too dangerous to wear masks to here's your mask, go wrestle. Now, show of hands, how many in here have wrestled?
You know, Sean, keep your comments directed. This is not a quiz. Okay.
It's
So-
just, it's a basis of knowledge information. How many, what do the people in this room know about the sport of wrestling? Have we wrestled, have we witnessed a wrestling match before? Have we
There-
gone
there
to
are-
a wall?
Certainly. Yes, we have.
Greco-Roman for several years.
So
Yeah.
you understand the close proximity of the sport?
Yes,
Okay. Now, when two individuals are wrestling with each other, do we really feel like this is gonna be the make or break between whether or
it's one
not
of the
we
reasons
get
why we're
COVID or
considering
not?
if it should have even been allowed.
The difference is what you're at, and I can give you some background on the change. Because originally it was gonna be vaccination for all wrestlers,
Mhm.
and there was quite an outcry.
Yeah.
You would cry from the
I
the
would
wrestling
assume there was.
community. And as Heather talked about, the compromise by the NPA was fine, then we'll go with a mask. All right. That was the decision that made by the NPA. It wasn't a decision made at this level. at all.
I understand.
And the bottom line is it's either masking or nothing. At this
Well,
point.
there are a certain group of schools that elect to not wear a mask.
Yeah.
and
when they get to the
understandably
state
so,
tournament- When
the-
they get to
the-
the state tournament, what are they gonna have to do?
Probably have to wear a mask.
They have to wear a mask. When they
What
go-
I can tell you is from my own personal experience, from exercising at a high level with these masks on, breathing not only my sweat, but whoever else's sweat that I come in contact with, whatever's on the mat, it's going in my mouth. What I can tell you is that there's a noticeable difference in my throat and the way I feel after the fact through that high level of exertion. Now, I would be okay with masking while we sit on the sidelines. Take the mask off while we wrestle. I just came up out of the gym and I don't want to throw anyone else under the bus, but anybody laid eyes on the band while they were down there? Certain levels of acceptance, I just don't understand. I don't think wrestling with a mask being that close with another human being, I don't see where the mask is doing what we think it should be doing. I just don't think kids should be wearing masks while they wrestle.
Duly noted.
Thank you for your comment. Anything else? All right, then we can move on. We were on old business, which was none. We are now on new business. Yep, we have personnel.
I've got 2 retirement resignations, 4 personnel, Phil Bunting, custodian, and Coach Mike Cowling unfortunately has to give up JV basketball and varsity baseball.
Okay.
I move that we accept the resignation and retirement as a block.
Do we have a second for Peter? There's a motion and a second. All those in favor of that? That is unanimous. Thank you. Next, we have nominations.
Yep, nominations, I have support personnel, Autumn Bishop, sped Ed Tech 1. Coaches, Tyler Pye, boys JV basketball, Josh Jackson, varsity baseball, Olivia West, BMS drama, David Gross, BMS wrestling, Sean Costigan, assistant BMS wrestling, Casey Pelletier, volunteer VHS and BMS wrestling, Sam Murphy, VHS volunteer wrestling, Emily Morrison, VHS volunteer, indoor outdoor track, and Josh Jackson is weight room supervisor.
Yeah, Scott, would you like to? do a
I think
nomination?
I make a motion that we accept these nominations as a block.
Peter has a second. So we have a motion and a second to accept the nominations as presented. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you. Next we have anything under transportation? It says transportation. but I don't see
No,
it.
there's nothing there.
Perfect. Consideration to access the technology reserve funds for the purchase of time management software, hardware, and support called Time Clock Plus for $27,000. And item D is Infinite Visions Financial Software Program Support, Training, and Implementation of $67,000. Those something that we want to have a little presentation on?
We can ask Mr. Morrow to step out. He can certainly talk to us. See if the shadow comes into the door. There it is.
Here it comes.
I'm putting it here tonight. It's very awkward. Anything particular you want me to talk about, or just kind of over the top of each one of them?
I think we, at the finance level, we've already heard quite a bit about
Right.
this, so if you want to just give a general overview.
Some of that I may kick over to Mrs. Gorley as well. Time Clock Plus is one of two pieces of software hardware combination that we're looking to replace basically our entire financial system. A lot of that comes from efficiency, not having to redo work that's already being done. For example, in our existing time clock system, we can put in holidays for all employees or no employees, and they all go in at 1 hour level. Time Clock Plus allows us to profile or categorize our staff. So we may have custodial staff, technology staff, ed techs at different levels, and we can apply them annually to all holidays or other things that apply. And Mrs. Gorley can do that just by simply telling its profile and assign it to the employee. Right now, a holiday probably takes 3/4 of a full day, suggesting that one holiday going through. The other thing that'll do is in our new financial system, which is also owned by Tyler Technologies, our current, excuse me, our current vendor, it'll be an exchange. So as we add employees to the programs called Infinite Visions, they get a time clock profile. We assign a card to them. All we had to do was enter in one spot and enter from both places. As people swipe their cards or punch in on the time clocks, when Ms. Gorley requests the time information, it comes over from the Time Clock Plus system. Currently, there's about 5 spreadsheets she prints out, then crosses them over, verifies information, adjusts what she needs to, then inputs them by hand into our finance system. Infinite Visions also gives us a employee onboard. So an employee can log into the portal, find out how much time off they have, what their payroll looks like. If they want to request time off, it can be done through that system. It can be approved through that system. So it allows us kind of a digital system, cuts down some of those phone calls. Overall, we expect the combination of 2 of those to relieve every 2 weeks about 12 to 14 hours of employee time that's currently being spent. So you figure that's 26 iterations per year. Doesn't quite get back itself in 1 year, but we certainly make it up annually. So the cost you see in front of you are the initial cost for those systems. The Time Clock Plus system, we negotiated so that it would renew on our budget cycle. So that'll actually carry us through August 1st of 2023 before the renewals due. We're able to then negotiate a renewal less than their normal rate for the next 2 years. So through June 30th, 2025, we know our cost for Time Clock Plus. That's also going to allow us to start integrating. We are active with them right now. So our time clock system, our time clock management, punch management system will be on board coming back out of February break. That'll give the opportunity for Ms. Gorley and I to work out any bugs or issues we have between then. And we launch Infinite Visions in the summer. So we're not trying to outlay 2 systems and get them to work together. Time Clock Plus is also a premium partner with Tyler Technologies for their Infinite Visions. They've been using for many years. They've actually developed their own custom, what we call an API, so that they talk to each other. And they both appreciate working with each other because that's already in place. It's basically just a switch for us. Any specific questions or anything else I might be able to answer? We're really looking forward to it. One of the things we're going to do during it is Mrs. Gorley's area is carrying a lot of information from generations. We got the old Orland School District still in there, and we got to maintain that for record keeping. And so a lot of accounts that were squished together or made to accommodate a situation are wrong in the budgeting system. So she spends lots of time trying to straighten those out and or creating other ones. This system will allow us to add another digit to one of our accounting systems, being able to divide other pieces much, much better. And there's actually a budget planning module to it. So there's a lot of details to the system that really we should have and we don't. That should really streamline after the first year of implementation.
One simple feature is we're gonna be allowed to do ACH transfers.
Yes.
Instead of
That's
having to cut
fantastic.
checks and mail that out. You know, and relying on the US Postal Service to get there on a timely basis.
You can't do it.
It's a needed upgrade. It's gonna give us a chance to start from scratch. Not, we're gonna hand enter, we're not gonna transport anything over. It's all gonna be cleaned out. and going
It also has a feature that allows us to use some of our common vendors such as Amazon, WB Mason. And as people select them, they can import them into our system. So we no longer figure out we're gonna order, enter a purchase order and then have it approved. You can actually export, you actually launch from within Visions into WB Mason, choose what you need and it brings it over, pricing everything into your purchase order. Then you send it for approval.
So we still have purchase order.
Oh, yeah, the whole process is still there. It just allows you not to have to duplicate. You don't transpose numbers or prices and stuff on that nature.
It's gonna be more accurate.
Yeah, exactly. And then you grab the ACH transfer on top of that. It's pretty smooth. I'm pretty sure Paul in our accounts payable office would ask you to justify all this expense just for the ACH factor, but it brings many more features.
Any other questions we have? All right, then I would look for a motion. Scott?
Well, I move that we use the technology reserve funds for the purchase of the technology listed.
Peter?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion? That is unanimous. Thank you. We have consideration for adoption of the revised professional learning community support system handbook and appointment of committee members and mentors.
I mentioned it earlier, and Abby mentioned it in her report. Great deal of work has been put forward in bringing our PLCSS document in line with state statute. That's all up to date. So legislature meets again. We're up current. And we shared with it in your report, the list of the committee members and our mentors. Excuse me.
Was much of this changed?
The structure didn't change, but certain verbiage within. Yes.
Okay,
Like Scott, now there's no such thing as a conditional certification.
oh, okay,
No, the initial, conditional, yes, but the initial, that's gone.
okay,
So typically, once you got out of school, you would have an initial certification, you would work. Once you got through your first cycle, with a
Okay.
professional, now you come out of school with a professional certificate.
okay.
But we're still providing the support.
Right, but you still have to be underneath a mentor and some of it.
Is that pretty much the same as it has been for a while, the mentor and everything? or is
Oh,
that-
yeah.
Yeah.
The mentoring hasn't changed.
That was back for a while.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it has. But they've updated everything by the legislature. It was very good work. I was impressed by it. Tedious work.
Anything further on? No, okay, so we can. Do we need to have a motion for adopting it?
You'd have a motion and adoption.
Scott?
Well, I move that we adopt the revised professional learning community support system handbook as presented.
And we have a second from Mr. Cobb. All those in favor of the motion? That is unanimous. Thank you. Next, we have first reading of some policies.
Yep.
Take it away, Dave.
Well, like I said, we met and in response to legislative changes, have brought forth and revised these policies. In all of the cases of these policies, we basically, they mirrored what we had on the books quite well. In many cases, they were almost verbatim. The original policies we adopted were written by our lawyer's office. And these just reflected the changes and we did, in a few places, brought in some language that existed in our policies that we liked, but didn't change the intent of what the legislature had proposed. Specific questions, either myself or Lucy can answer those, but again, these were very close and then all of it. And I think in every case it was, bring this policy forward as written by our lawyers office. And again, they were very, very close to that.
So this is to follow new laws.
Mhm.
Don't have a whole lot of say in it.
Not much, no.
What is the general upswing for like expulsion? Like we had there was a definite what you can do and what you can't do.
Yep.
How much has that changed?
What's changed is by law now, you cannot expel any student in grade 5 or below unless it is for a violation of the weapons or safety.
I think that's the only instance we've ever had.
That's exactly right.
So, okay. So that's no change.
The other significant change is that per occurrence, a suspension cannot be more than 3 days for grades 5 through. And that's out of school, that does not include in-school suspension.
Well, in-school suspension's a totally different thing, isn't it?
Well, you're still out in your classroom, but you're in the building every day, yes.
I always found in-school suspension more effective. I've seen both.
Oh, yeah, you hate going there, not being able to see your peers, but you're still at school.
Well, I tell you what, I think I did more schoolwork in-school suspension than I did the rest of the year.
But for our high school students who may have an expulsion, this really doesn't change
Nothing. no,
anyway. So we can still have the pathway to reentry and
That never changes.
demand.
No, that's still a requirement.
Yeah, no, that's really the only real concern I would have is that there's a good pathway to reentry with real demands, not just time.
Absolutely.
Any other questions on first reading of policies? Then I would look for a motion. Scott?
I move that we accept the readings of the first reading of the full policies listed.
We'll look for a second. Peter? Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of first readings? That is unanimous. Thank you. Next, we have second reading of policies.
These are brought to you unchanged from the first reading.
Look for a motion.
So I move that we approve the second reading of the policy for the 3 policies listed.
Look for a second. Peter? Second. We have a motion and a second on the second reading of policies. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. And the next on the agenda is executive session, but before we break, I would ask us to just announce the calendar and announcements.
Yep. And there's an adjustment for what's printed here, so I'll go over it. Curriculum committee will meet January 13th at 6 o'clock. Policy committee will meet January 11th at 5:30. Finance committee is January 18th at 5:30. School board meeting is January 18th, following the finance meeting at 6 o'clock. Facilities committee will be meeting at January 13th at 4:30. And we'll have the folks from BIMS will be there to meet with us and share some of the information they put together. The Aspire committee will meet January 26th at 6 o'clock.
And we have the board
Workshop.
on the 6th.
Yep, thank you. I'll add that. And that will be right here.
And that's not a public meeting, that's just a workshop.
It's a workshop.
Then we will break into executive session pursuant to MRSA Title I, Section 4056A for the discussion relative to superintendent's evaluation. For everyone else,
While everybody's clearing out, I'm gonna run to the bathroom real quick.
Yeah, we need a motion to go into executive session.
With that motion.
Well, I was just gonna say, for everyone else, have a good night. Merry Christmas if I don't see you before.
So is that your motion?
Without the,
Without.
without the Merry Christmas.
I second.
We
I'll
tried
take
it.
away the Merry Christmas.
You guys are perfect. Thank you.
We have to vote on that?
Yeah.
Everyone wanna go in? Okay, we're on.
All right, thank you.
No, geez, just think about everybody back.
You got the insurance on. One. All right, we are back from executive session. And now I would look for a motion to adjourn. Abby
I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
and Scott,
I second.
we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor? Great, that is unanimous. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
You know.